Sowore. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you for me.
You're all right, though, aren't you? I mean,
well, I'm always
nobody
all right.
punched you in the face or anything, because that is something that will not be countenanced.
Well, I expect the worst and hope for the best when I'm relating with Nigerian officials, especially security agents. So.
Well, in this case, we certainly hope for the best, and it does appear as though it ended well. But just tell us what was happening in that video and the context in which it happened.
Well, for me, it has to do with access to justice. And that is to say that everybody who wants to get justice in Nigeria goes to court, or they are brought to court. In my own case, I was brought to court 2 weeks ago by the police. And prior to that period...
Why were you brought to court?
Because I called the IG of police illegal, that his tenure has expired.
So they were not amused?
They were not amused, and they reached out to me to drop that particular position, and I said no, he should retire because he has already completed his tenure after 35 years in service and 60 years of age. That was September 4, 2024. And that campaign started even before his tenure supposedly was extended, so I didn't stop. So when they brought me to court, they asked me to drop my passport. So we filed a motion. I was going back to court to get a date so that I could get my passport back. So they always target my passport.
I was going to say that passport that was held for a long period of time, you got it back, you were able to travel. It's been taken again.
They've taken it from me again 2 weeks ago. So, and that was what took me to court. But upon approaching the gate of the Federal High Court, I saw huge security cordon, and I did ask what the issue was. And they said they have a former governor of Kogi State, Yahya Bello, on trial. And I said, how's that a problem? You've caught a thief and you have him under your control. He's on trial. Why harass the rest of us? We have business in court.
Well, he hasn't been found guilty, though,
well,
so it's not a good idea to call him a thief.
Well, that's why they took him to court.
He's alleged to be a thief.
They accuse him of stealing 80 billion naira.
He's accused of it, but he hasn't been found guilty yet.
Yeah. So we were there for that purpose. But I have witnessed over time, in the last 6 years particularly, how the sacrilegious takeover of the court premises, especially by the DSS. I was abducted on the 3rd floor of that Federal High Court by the DSS, fully armed. The judge had to flee. And
My God.
Yes.
Sounds horrendous.
It was horrendous. So, and they've done it several times. So everybody who has a case that he has interest in court brings their own security to take over the court. Not only do they do that, and this is why I'm surprised that lawyers in this country have not done anything about it. They take over the job of the court officials. They take the cost list from them. The DSS, it could be the lowest official of the DSS. They will take the cost list and be screening lawyers, some of the senior advocates of Nigeria, to go to the Federal High Court. They usually do this with Nnamdi Kanu because they claim he's a security risk. I don't see how that's a problem. And we have suggested to them that since you are not interested in justice or fair trial for Nnamdi Kanu, just set up one of your conference rooms at the DSS headquarters. Get the judge to come there, finish up the job. Don't pretend that you want justice. But if you're going to do it in a civil court, Federal High Court, you have to allow every other person who has business in court to do their business, including, and most importantly, the court officials who are appointed, paid, or elected to man our courts. But this violation has continued for too long, and that was what led to the altercation you saw. And when they realized that I wasn't backing down, of course, common sense prevailed. But for me, it is something that has to end. You cannot just set up court systems, tell people that they can have access to the courtrooms. They are public places. In fact, the court has a gallery where even if you have no business in court, you can sit and just watch proceedings in court. And I usually do that, by the way.
Of course. You have a right to do that.
For some persons who claim they come from security agencies, paramilitary organizations to take over the court and then start harassing people, it's just something unacceptable. And, I know we have normalized for too long a lot of abnormalities and absurdities in our country. But it gets to a point where you say enough is enough.
Well, I mean, I've seen, you know, obviously this one, it was quite sort of arresting, that video. But I mean, you've had a lot of altercations with, you know, these soldiers and police and all the rest of it.
In fact, during Buhari's regime, policemen would bring thugs from town to come beat us up when we tried to attend Nnamdi Kanu's trial. My car was broken into, I was attacked physically several times on camera. So, but after Buhari left, I think they changed tactics.
I mean, you must have a very strong constitution to keep going up against these people in spite of the apparent attempt on several occasions to break your spirit.
Well, you know, I don't have any other country other than Nigeria. I've traveled maybe extensively. That's why I'd never changed my citizenship. I just think we must make this place a better place for its citizens, our brothers, sisters, and compatriots, and that we shouldn't live as slaves in our own country. And that's a conviction that I never give up on. And it has lasted as long as Babangida has been gone.
Well, we're going to come to Babangida in a minute,
my activism,
because I know he's been one of your,
I started activism
your pet talking points
under his regime, we've consistently just challenged these people. I've been through some 7 presidents in my lifetime. I think this is the 8th person.
But we're going to come to IBB sort of Babangida shortly. But I mean, in all these cases, has your respect for the Nigerian judiciary increased or lessened?
Oh, completely eroded. There's no way I can have respect for a judicial system that denigrates me, that deny me of access to even basic justice. I was tried for 5 years between 2019 and 2024 when I was eventually let go. And my passport was seized, I was restricted to Abuja, my brother died, I couldn't see my family for 5 years. These guys woke up one day, came to court and said, well, they didn't even say we're sorry, they said, oh, we want to discontinue the trial.
I read somewhere that you once said, I mean, and you were being paraphrased, that fair trials no longer exist and that justice is whatever the government and its agencies deem it to be, and that the presumption of innocence is now the presumption of guilt. Has your experience borne that out, or were you being misquoted or speaking in just broad terms?
I was almost quoted. That's the life I've lived. Way back, from as far back as my university days, where I was expelled twice without trial. I was incarcerated several times. I was taken to magistrates in Lagos. I remember in 1990 when we had the protest at the Nuga Games, and our lawyer, Ebuade Borowa, SAN now, stood up to the magistrate and said, the charges are incompetent. And the magistrate looked at the book and discovered that you cannot breach public peace at a stadium. That's what the law says. He looked at us and said, well, even if the charges are incompetent, I have to hold these guys until the games are over. And he detained us for 2 weeks. Just like that. And I've had several of those and I think what they do to people like us is because they will never have enough evidence to have any kind of trial. They obtain the punishment in advance so that they know that the trial will fall apart anyways. But you would have had your time wasted, you would have been incarcerated unjustly, you would have had all kinds of atrocities committed against you. So they will get away with the punishment while you walk away with the wounds.
And has all that sort of given you much more flintiness and sort of selfless bravery and determination? Because you certainly come across that way. Or has your spirit in any way been broken or certainly dampened by all this?
No, I think very early in life I had taken into consideration that I was doing something that would attract lots and lots of consequences. I read books about it. I had some kind of training, not physical training, but intellectual and ideological training from the likes of Femi Falana and those we met early in life. And they had kind of equipped us with the expectations of things to happen, things that could come. But I must also admit that I was not thinking after 1993, for instance, or after the military left, that I would be languishing in detention for expressing myself about an IGP of police. Because even the IGP of police under the military couldn't detain us based on things we said that they didn't like. Interestingly, because there's a rule, I think it's Rule 365 in the police order book, that says police officers cannot use their offices, they can abuse their offices to prosecute people on behalf of themselves. That's the rule.
So in a sense, military rule might have gone, but the practice of the kind of, if you like, the culture of official domination remains.
Let's call it impunity, has gotten worse. And you saw that in August of 2024, when underage kids were arrested, detained for months, and tried for treason until it became a national embarrassment. I was saying an international embarrassment. That was when they were released and immediately rehabilitated, according to them. Under the military, no kids, underage kids, were ever arrested and tried for treason. Even students, they were careful with us. They were careful with youth corpers. But I think those boundaries have become very blunt now. Nobody cares anymore. They just do what they like to break anybody who stands up. And there are more draconian laws now that gags free speech than there was probably under military era, because that's what's pretty much the Cybercrime Act is all about.